Yeah, I think having this competencies framework is going to be really important from both the sectors and from government's perspective, because what it does, I think it sets the frame for what is obviously very complex work that we do. And the way I describe our work, so our work has a number of dimensions here. It's both personal and it's professional. It's personal in that it has to be person-centered. We have to remember the human beings who are at the center of everything that we do. But obviously we need to be professional in terms of the expertise we bring to the role, the expertise that our clients deserve with the services that we provide to them. And then the work is also multifaceted, it's multidimensional, and it's multi-layered. And if you think about that journey for new arrivals, right from that first arrival at the airport through housing, life skills, education, health, employment, all of these are really complex areas in their own right, even whether it be in government or in sector, in terms of service providers. And what the settlement sector does, it plays in all of those spaces. And in that sense, then having a very clear overarching competency framework, I think, becomes really, really important in terms of ensuring that we do it well.
If we want governments to invest even more in what we do, then having a framework that can help validate the importance of that and the effectiveness of it, it just becomes an essential part as more and more as governments move towards wanting more evidence before they agree to provide additional funding into programs and areas and so forth. The other thing that they'll be looking for is evidence about whether or not the agencies receiving the funding or the sector they're investing in actually has the capability to deliver it. And if you think about it, that's entirely legitimate on the part of any government wanting to utilise taxpayer dollars effectively and fairly. And so I just think it becomes really critical to our ability to progress forward. And I have been in this space for 33 years, and the level of investment when I first started compared to what the level of investment is now is poles apart. Like there is much, much more investment in this space, and that's largely because there's been more recognition of the importance of the work and the fantastic work that so many agencies have been delivering on. But ironically, we've never really got to the point of being able to also embed that in an overarching framework.
As the environment or the ecosystem we operate in changes, the competencies are the grounding point upon which we look to, but they can also, as the world changes, if we move into different models of delivery, we can also then start to adjust those for those elements that are required. The question of professionalisation of workforces always arises with competencies, and that, you then get into the whole argument about qualifications and recognition, etc. I think they are very important discussions to have and can play a key role. So some organisations might want to totally professionalise their workforce. They will now, once we get through the curriculum development phase and the accreditation phase, there will be ways for people to train on the job, have their competencies recognised, and then, if you like, get their qualification. But by the same token, we might have very small or community-based organisations that don't have the funding or wherewithal to develop staff. The competencies themselves are going to be the thing they point to say, I know what to measure ourselves against, even if we don't do it formally.
They become important to establishing the validity of the work that everybody does. So the sector is full of very capable and highly skilled people, and a lot of the functions and the activities that we are engaged in doing require a multitude of skills that at the moment I don't think are fully appreciated. And one of the reasons why they're not fully appreciated is there isn't a clear framework. Like a lot of industries, psychologists have their own set of competencies and guidelines for registration and so forth, and you could say the same about lots of different industries and so forth. And some of us have to comply with those different things already anyway. But settlement has never really had that framework that it can locate itself within, that provides an evidence base to the work, but properly reflects in an objective way the level of skill that exists and the value that it brings to making Australia a better place, let alone what it brings to the individual clients that we work with.
Yet another one of the domains, which is, I think, really, really important, is around that professionalism of the sector. And I think both David and Paris have alluded to the need to actually recognise the particular unique capabilities, skills, and challenges that the sector kind of deals with and needs to be recognised for. But in terms of, if we're going to claim to be doing really, really important work as a sector, we also need to be equally rigorous about what we accept and promote in terms of the core capabilities. And this is where professionalism becomes really, really important, because we're doing important work here. We're dealing with the most vulnerable people in the world in terms of the people that we deal with. And we need to have the right people who are given the right support, trained with the right skills. One of the things I particularly like about the professionalism core competency is also how it has self-care and resilience woven into it as a domain, as opposed to being something that's kind of quite separate. So those issues around resilience, health, well-being of our workforce being a really, really important bit. So I think what the competencies framework does here then is actually does bring a whole range of really, really important, I've just touched on some of them, domains together, which kind of sets those standards, which are absolutely vital if we are going to ensure that we don't compromise good outcomes for people in our clients, the people we deal with within the settlement sector. Recognizing that very often for all of us who play in this sector, whether we're government, whether we are settlement providers, whether we are one of those areas that support the settlement journey, their experience and their journey is often in our hands. There are touch points which can make all the difference to a person's life, and we need to actually honour that responsibility, give respect to this responsibility. I think the competencies framework will play a really, really important role in supporting us to do this.
And when I reflect on it, I think what we're experiencing now is there's more expected of settlement practitioners as a professional discipline than ever before. And those expectations are coming from all sorts of places. We see many of the service systems that surround us and that we reach out to are all in a reform agenda, if you like. We've got women's safety, family violence, child safety, mental health reform, aged care reform, community expectations around racism and the like are shifting as well. And obviously COVID's had a significant sort of impact on the expectations of us to be able to mobilise community and community capacity building at a really important time. So all of those expectations are shifting, and because we work with and work across and within a lot of those particular service systems, we have to shift and adapt as well, and continue to develop our professional discipline and practice to accommodate that in a way that's going to deliver the best outcomes for our clients.
I want to acknowledge one point about the framework itself. It's a very practical and pragmatic tool. And in macro level, it will help the resourcing and distribution of the competency in smaller teams, bigger teams. It's a great help to which affects the efficiency and the performance of the workforce. So it helps us to have a more consistent work and communicate easier with the other parts of and avoid replication in different organizations. So I think it's a great tool in general, and we talked about the quality and the efficiency, and all of this together, as Paris said, it will help us to recognize the level of the work that the sector is doing.
We come from a really strong place. We come from strong foundations. We come from a long history of providing great outcomes based around some really significant skills and experience, and things like cultural competence, bilingual and bicultural, social and interpersonal skills. And many of the people who are coming to the settlement space are coming from a lived experience of a refugee or a migrant, which is really, really powerful indeed as well. So what the competencies can do is create that journey and that pathway through and surround that with a professional development framework that will actually help and assist that and empower the new and emerging workforce as we go forward. So I think I'll probably reflect by posing a challenge, if I like. And one of the competencies talks to leadership, and it's a significant one in itself. And I think it probably talks to a lot of the people in the conversation today. And I think there's a challenge for us as leaders in this space to really create a powerful vision for the future of settlement, and one that really sort of mobilises our workforce and communities around it. And two, for us as leaders to really enact that vision and support our teams and our practitioners to embrace opportunities for growth and development, I guess. And that's going to need us to make decisions to invest in that space as well, and to collaborate with each other and to share knowledge and practice. So really, powerful opportunity for us as leaders to really enact a really exciting vision, I think, for the future.